Good morning or good afternoon, all you Colourwerx peeps out there. I am Linda, and this is Carl, and this is from the Colourwerx Design House. It is Friday, if you can believe it, February 25th, and this is another fabulous live and always fun episode of yes, it's episode number 33 of the fabulous Fab Friday, coming to you from the fabulous Colourwerx Design House here in Palm Desert, beautiful Palm Desert, California, I might add. I hate to make everybody else in the rest of the country upset with us, but it is a beautiful day out there, and I think it's about 72 degrees. So very nice. Hello, everybody checking in. I see we've got Trudy and Pat from Pinehurst, and Nedra is checking in from Arizona. Hello, my good friend Nedra, and Julie, my other good friend in Oceanside. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Kimberly is there. Good morning. And Susan, good morning to you. And Suzanne, everybody is checking in, and anybody who's shy doesn't want to check in, that's okay too. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Like I said, happy Friday, Mary to you too. This is episode number 33. We are going to do a tutorial today called Hand Applique by Machine. We need to take care of some little housekeeping things first. Should we check in with the cactus cam, Carl, or should we go? Oh, it's beautiful. Look at it. It's beautiful. We had some wind last night, which kind of always clears all the skies up, or the night before last, I can't remember. But it's a beautiful day. My good friend Jen Hickson, checking in from Palm Springs, can attest to that as well. So good morning, everybody. I just want to do some announcements. Let's give away, first of all, what was that? Terry Petty, what did you just say, Carl?
She's working on a clock.
Oh, she's working on a block clock. Yes, if you're interested, last week's tutorial, which was episode number 32, was Carl's block clock tutorial, meaning you're going to make a clock out of an orphaned block, quilt block. So that's episode number 32 up on our Colourwerx YouTube channel. So please go check it out. Also, please like and share this video with everybody. You can share it right now with friends and neighbors and friends, family on Facebook. So we're always growing or looking for ways to grow our Colourwerx peep family here. So let's do some housekeeping. Let's give away the $10 gift card winner from last week's question. And of course, as I mentioned, Carl did his block clock tutorial. And so the question was, what block will you put in your block clock if you make one? And so the winner of the $10 Colourwerx gift card is, randomly, Lena. Congratulations. You are this week's winner of a $10 Colourwerx gift card. We will get that to you right out in the email after the program ends today. Congratulations, Lena. And so other housekeeping things. You might notice this quilt behind me. This is our No Fear of Curves Cosmos block. So I want to talk about, by popular request, you guys asked for them. They're up on the website, ready to get registered. Our Colourwerx online workshops for individuals. So anybody can sign up for these. They are up there. And so you can take a workshop with both of us or one of us, usually me, from the comfort of your home, in your pajamas. You've got all your sewing stuff about you. So it makes for great fun. We do it over Zoom, and it's really a fun time. So the workshops that are available to sign up right now are, I think we have in numerical order or coming up in sequentially in the calendar, Color Bugs and Curves, which is happening Saturday, March 13th. And so you guys go check out the website, colourwerx.com, go up to the shopping tab or the workshop tab, and you'll find all these workshops for you to sign up. There's 4. So Color Bugs and Curves, Saturday, March 13th. That's a 6-hour workshop. And then we go to our Got Color lecture, which is going to be on Tuesday morning, March 23rd, and that's a 1-hour lecture with a Q&A afterwards, and that's both Carl and I, and again, that's via Zoom. And then we go to a really fun 4-hour workshop, which is wonky piecing and easy applique. That's happening and scheduled for Thursday, March 25th. I believe in the morning, and that's a 4-hour workshop. So if you've ever wanted to do wonky piecing and make one of our cute little mini mod dogs or a mod cat or a mod fish, perhaps, this is the workshop for you. And then the last,
you get to choose which one you do.
You can choose which one you want to do, yeah. And then the last one is our Cosmos workshop, which is the quilt that's right behind me. So that's the No Fear of Curves Cosmos workshop, another 6-hour workshop happening during the day, Friday, March 26th. So all of those 4 workshops are up on the Colourwerx.com website under the shop tab or the workshop tab, and you can register, and then you'll get a confirmation from me plus the supply list so you can prepare for the workshop. And then we'll be Zooming together, and that should be fun. So I hope that you will go check those out or tell your friends to go check those out. So let's see, anybody else checking in from where, Carl? Oh, Judy, good morning, everybody.
And Trudy just said it's nice and flavorless too this morning.
Ah, yes. I think East and West Coast extremes are having really nice weather, and middle of the country might be snowing. I don't know. But wherever you are, I hope you're warm and safe. You know, Brenda, good morning. Hello. And Petra, good morning. And Suzanne from France. Are you still in France, Suzanne? Oh, my. Good morning, Suzanne.
Hello,
and
hello.
Anna, good morning. Okay, so we're going to say good morning, good morning, good morning to everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. Let's start this tutorial. Okay, this is called Hand Applique by Machine. And the reason I'm doing this tutorial today is if anybody ever came into Lindarella's quilt workshop, which was in Southern Pines for 9 years, you guys know I absolutely admired to the T all the beautiful hand applique and hand appliqueurs that were in Pinehurst at that point. I wanted to do hand applique. I am no good at hand applique. I don't have the patience for hand applique. So through the discovery of some teachers that taught this technique, which we had at Lindarella's when we had the shop, they came in and taught workshops, and also through some other discoveries of my own with older quilters like Harriet Hargrave, who has certain techniques in her book. I'm going to show you how to do or emulate hand applique, but you're actually going to do it by machine. Okay, so we're going to go over to the overhead, and I'm going to actually bring up the card first as we start this tutorial because you need some tools and notions to do this. So if Carl brings up that first card, we'll get started. Okay, so this is the first thing you need to look for, which is called wash away applique paper. And this is available at most quilt shops. It's also available on Amazon if you can't find it at your local quilt shop. And I put on the right-hand side an equivalent or alternate to it. So if you can't find wash away applique paper sheets, you can look for something like that's called Ricky Tim's Stable Stuff. That also works. What these sheets are, either wash away applique sheets or the Stable Stuff, is they are interfacing sheets. They feel fibrous, they feel rough, and they're actually going to stay in your applique shapes. And we're going to actually soak the blocks when we're done stitching around them. And then these sheets or these pieces of paper that you put in your shapes will actually start to kind of disintegrate and become very fibrous and fill your shape. So let's go to the next card. You will also need these notions. You'll need a glue stick. Now, I've put up 2 of my favorite glue sticks there. So you can either, I like the Sew Line one, which looks like a pencil almost. I also really like the Collins glue stick, fabric glue stick. That one has silicone in it, and you're going to see why I like it. It actually, the silicone in the Collins glue stick actually makes your fabric very pliable and soft, and therefore it turns to the back side very easily, and I'll show you this technique. You're also going to need to gather some Schmetz, very small, that's a 60/8 size needle. You want, when we go around and stitch around these shapes, you're going to want to leave the smallest possible hole in your applique shape that you can. You're going to need also clear thread, and this is my favorite as well, monopoly by Superior Threads. Why do I like monopoly? Because it doesn't melt under the iron. So if you get something like a nylon clear thread, that will melt under your iron, and you need something that holds up under the heat of the iron and also holds up under wash and soaking and things like that, because like I said, we're going to soak the block. So you're going to need a glue stick, Schmetz 60/8 needles, they should be super sharp, or quilting needles, Microtex, and some monopoly by Superior Threads clear thread. So now we'll go to the overhead. Okay, so here I am at the overhead. Everything is working. That's great. So again, here's the wash away applique sheets. This is just a sample of the sheet. They come in 8.5 by 11 sheets. and they also come in rolls. And this is a really wonderful product. Why is it a wonderful product? Well, one, you can put it in your printer and you can actually print the shapes on it. Two, it's got a fusible side to it, which Ricky Tim's Stable Stuff does not. So the fusible side is really helpful because you can fuse, once you cut your shape, fuse it to your fabric and it stays put with a little extra help maybe from some glue sticks. And it's, like I said, it's going to stay in your shape. So just get that kind of picture in your head that that's what you're going to be looking for at your quilt shop. Wash Away Applique Sheets. It's called by C&T Publishing. This is what the sheet looks like. So literally, it's just a piece of paper. But if I bring it up, you might see that it's kind of fibrous. It kind of feels like an interfacing. And of course, it's shiny on one side, which is the fusible side. And then there's a smooth side, which is where you're going to draw your shape. So how does this technique work? Well, the preparation for doing hand applique by machine is very similar to doing needle turn applique. And so, yes, the prep work is really where all the time is spent. And I wanted to show you this before I get into that. So this is actually printing in your printer. You can see my ink smudge up there, but you just run the sheets through your printer just like that, regular inkjet printing there, and then you would cut your shapes out. So that's what that looks like. So let's talk about how you set up your shapes. Here is a pattern from Kim McLean. This is, you probably all recognize maybe this pattern if I show it to you. This is my UFO that will take me forever. I'll probably be 90 by the time this quilt actually gets done, or it never gets done. But it is in process. I don't get a lot of time to spend on it, but you can see these are all beautiful flower shapes. If you like this look, this is Kim McLean. She's an Australian artist. You can find these patterns, her patterns, at gloriouscolor.com. Gloriouscolor.com. They do nothing but Kaffe Fawcett fabric at gloriouscolor.com, and they carry these beautiful patterns, if you can't find them at your local quilt shop, of Kim's. And they're very intricate, but what I like about them is you can isolate a block and do it once. So this is what this block is from, is Kim McLean's Glorious Color. So how do we start with hand applique by machine? Well, you need to trace the shape. So let's say I'm going to concentrate on this very easy heart shape here for my demo today, because I want to make it super easy for you guys to see how this goes. So I need to trace that shape on my Wash Away Applique sheet. I'm not going to add a 1/4 inch seam allowance to this. I'm going to simply trace the shape as it sits here. I don't add any seam allowance. So I put my Wash Away Applique sheet paper down. Of course, I'm not going to trace on the fusible side. I want to trace on the paper side. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw the shape in like this, not adding any seam allowance to it. Now, the only thing I'm going to add to the shape, and this is natural or normal for when you do applique as well, is where shapes are overlapped by another shape. So if you can see, this cup of the stem here is overlapping the heart shape here. I need to add to my heart shape that seam allowance, or that little bit of extra fabric that will tuck under that, that cup shape. And so I have one already done. Let me show it to you. So there you go. And what I've done is I've put a dotted line, as you can see right here. And that dotted line indicates to me that I don't need to turn under this edge because it's going to be overlapped by another piece of applique. So I'm going to have to turn under all these other edges. So I've got my shapes, let's say, traced out on Wash Away Applique paper. I'm now going to cut them out on the lines. So for instance, this heart shape, it ends up looking like that. I've cut it out. I've numbered it maybe to keep myself straight, you know, when I put all these shapes back together in my block. I've got my dotted lines down there indicating to me, it just reminds me that I don't need to turn under that particular edge. And what you do is you just set up all your shapes. I usually trace all these shapes first, and then I go put them on fabric. So I've got my heart shape here for the demo. I'm going to take my piece of Kaffe here, which is this beautiful purple kind of fungus looking thing from Philip Jacobs. And I'm going to actually take this heart shape and I'm going to fuse it. And I might actually also put some more extra glue on it. So I'm going to take one of my glue sticks here and I'm going to rub, you know, and throw glue on there because I'm going to soak these things when they get done being stitched on. So I want to make sure that this shape, whoops, I got to get it in there the right way. so I have enough seam allowance. So I want to make sure this shape stays put through the whole process. And so by the time I fuse that with a little iron, hot iron, and glue it, it'll stay put. Now, I need to now cut the shape out from the fabric, but I've got to add my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to take my handy ruler here, and I'm going to like just go trace around with a Frixion or some kind of marking pen around about a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around this heart shape. So I would draw around a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. I don't need to do it down here where the dotted line is, because near here at the bottom, because that is not going to be turned under. So let's see what that looks like. So I cut that out, and I've got a shape like this. And you can see there it is. It's got a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around it. And again, this part of the process is a great thing to do in front of the TV at night. It's a great thing to do on a rainy day. It does take some patience, and it does take time. So it's very similar, or it is exactly the same process you do when you're doing hand applique by hand. And I'll show you, we'll get to that in the sense of what happens when you do it on the machine. So now I've got to turn over these edges. So this 1/4 inch seam allowance I left on the edge, I've got to actually glue it to the back here and turn it under and over, so to speak, to keep, that's to keep the illusion of the hand applique by machine. That's going to give the illusion of needle turn applique. So I need to grab my glue sticks. Again, now the Collins glue stick I've got here, I really like for this particular process because it's got silicone in it, which actually makes this edge really pliable. You can also use the Soline glue stick. You can also use Elmer's glue stick. Any of those work. I'm going to actually bring a whiteboard in because I don't want to get glue all over my cutting board. So now we're on a whiteboard here. And you can see that. And I do need to clip the curves. So I'm just going to go in and give a little clip, a little nip around the curves, not going right to the edge of the white interfacing there, the wash away applique sheet, but enough to get this curve to kind of go over. And I'm clipping inside here. I'm leaving about a thread around. The Collins glue stick, sometimes you don't need to clip the curves because it actually makes that fabric edge so soft that they'll just turn over like a pie crust going into a pie pan, if you know what I mean. You do need to go to your beauty supply store here, I think, and get yourself something like this. These are cuticle sticks. You can buy them for like $4 for like 100 of them or something, or whatever that is, 144. These I really like. So get this. These are facial waxing applicators. These are great for this technique. And let me show you what they look like. They're just these little applicators that look like this, right? They're like little pieces of, what do you call that? Like balsa wood or wood or lollipop sticks. Thank you, Carl. Okay, so now what do? Well, now we're going to take our glue stick. We're going to actually run some glue along the edge here, okay? And this is where this makes great for TV work. We're just going to work this edge over and over. We're trying to work out any wrinkles or puckers that happen. And that's where these sticks actually work, because you're working the edge over and you can smooth it with this straight edge right here. You can smooth the edge over. And if you don't think it's sticking well enough, just add some more, like there, add some more glue, get it to stick. Make sure you're using, by all means, a water-soluble glue, because you want the glue to dissipate when we soak the block. And so as I come around the curve here, I don't know, I might switch glue sticks here and come and add some of this Collins glue. Again, if you've never done this before, start out with a simple shape like a circle or a leaf or something like that, and get used to the way the fabric kind of works itself and get it pliable and work it over like that. And this takes quite some time. So this is not a fast process. Again, this is why I say it's TV work or a nice work for the day. But you can see it's starting to turn over there. And you kind of work it until you work out these little puckers and things like that. And I'll show you some shapes that have already been worked. So again, here's some of the leaf shapes from this particular pattern. They come out beautiful. They look like you've just turned the edge over, which you have, but that takes quite some time. You know, this is not a fast process. The fast process comes when I put it on the machine. And again, here's another leaf shape, and you can see you're having to cut your curves there. And again, using the glue stick and these little, what do you call these, lollipop sticks, as Carl called them, or applicators, really, really help. Here's another flower from that actual pattern I want to show you. So this is part of a flower, and you can see on the bottom here, I did not turn that bottom part over or turn it back to the wrong side. Why? Because that is overlapped by several other pieces. So here's part of that same flower, and that would overlap that. And then here's the bottom of the flower, and again, that is completely turned over to the wrong side of the wash away applique paper, and that overlaps that. So once you get all your shapes ready to go, the next step is that you're going to take your background block or background fabric, cut it a bit larger than the pattern says, only because you're going to put it in water when this block is all done. And if it shrinks slightly, you want to be able to square it down to what the pattern size says. So make sure your background fabric is cut just slightly larger, like 1 inch larger. Once you get your shapes all set up like this and ready to go, you would then fuse and also glue them. And again, don't be scared to use more glue if you need to. You can use your glue sticks here to glue these shapes to the background fabric. You can pin them in place. I'm just going to hold that there. You can also use I think we're all familiar with this, the Roxanne's glue based it. This has this really nice little kind of micro tip applicator to it. You can use this, which is water soluble as well, to glue and paste all your shapes in formation onto the background block. Once you're done gluing everything in place, you're ready to go over to your machine and finish these blocks up lickety split. So let me show you that with another block that I already had set, and we'll just run some video on that, and then I'll come right back to you. So I'm over here at my Bernina, and I've set up my machine with a few things. I've changed my needle to a 60-10 size needle. I've also changed my presser foot to an open toe presser foot. My bobbin has a 50 weight neutral colored thread. This is particularly Aurifil thread, so it's something neutral to my background fabric. And I've also loaded the top of my machine with the monopoly superior thread clear thread. The other thing I've done is I've set my machine to a blind hem stitch. You can also use a zigzag stitch, but I like the blind hem stitch. And if you notice, the stitch width and length is very tiny. I have set my stitch width to about 1.5, this is for a Bernina, and about 0.65 for the length. And you're going to see this is very tiny. So the way we start this applique now is, just so you know, I like to use, again, like I said, the blind hem stitch. You may use your zigzag stitch, but remember, all of these stitches for zigzag, they go zig and they zag, and they zig and they zag. The blind hem stitch goes straight, and then it zags over onto the applique shape. So you want to set your machine stitch width and length very tiny, so that when it comes over here and bites the edge of your applique, it's only biting the outer edge, the very outer edge. So you're going to have to experiment with stitch width and length until you find it to be the most tiniest stitch you can get, but it just takes a bite out of here. You don't want the bite to be too extreme over into the applique fabric, because by having it just take a bite right on the edge, let's say, of this brown, when this applique is all done, that's what gives it the illusion of making it look like it was done needle turn hand applique versus by machine. So we're going to start on this side of the applique where this particular leaf is overlapped by the stem. So you want to start on shapes that are overlapped by other shapes first. Those will be the first shapes that you want to stitch down. And again, we're just going to take one stitch in place and bring that needle back up, raise that presser foot back up, and that'll bring our bobbin thread up to the top. Can you see that? There's the bobbin thread popping up to the top. That is so that you avoid any thread nests below. And what we're going to do now is, remember, we're on the blind hem stitch. So this is going to go straight, and then do a little carrot over to the left. And so I'm going to secure my stitch by doing a couple stitches in place. My machine has that ability where I can just hit the secure stitch button and it does a couple in place just like that. And now I'm headed, I'm going to start going. So can you see it's going straight, straight, over, straight, straight, over, straight, straight, over. And so I just continue on. This is a very, very, very tiny little blind hem stitch. And you can also do this with your zigzag stitch. And I'm allowing the straight, straight, straight stitch. If you can see, it's actually taking that stitch right in the gutter, if you will, between the edge of the applique shape and the background fabric. So now it's going to make a carrot over, and it goes straight, 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 right in the gutter, straight, 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 right in the gutter. There we go. And you just keep going. And as I make my way around this leaf, I'll turn it to the wrong side to show you what's going on back here. Can you see it right here? That is the blind hem stitch. But if I turn to the front, you're not going to be able to see much. What you're going to see is basically just a little glistening of the monopoly on top. So you just keep continuing on, stitching around all the shapes like so. Make sure that you secure your stitch at the beginning and end of each of these shapes. You can even overlap the stitches slightly, but sometimes if you overlap monopoly too much, that will actually cause it to shine more off the fabric as well. And of course, as I come to this curve, I'm going to do my same rules in machine applique where I pivot and turn. And if I stop on the outside of the applique, I pivot and turn for an outside curve. I pivot and turn on the outside of the applique for an outside curve. Yeah, I said it one more time. And for an inside curve, I pivot and curve on the inside of the applique. And once your eye gets used to not being hypnotized by the needle too much, you can go pretty fast like you saw me doing there. And you can see right here as we come around the front, you can barely see that monopoly clear thread. I can see some holes here, and those holes are going to heal up when I stick this in water after I'm all done, and I'm going to show that to you next. So I'm going to continue stitching here for a minute and get all this stitched up, and then I'll show you what the next step is. So here's the finished block. It's all been stitched around. All the shapes have been secured with the blind hem stitch, just cutting right, biting right into the edge of the applique. And you can see on the back side there, kind of the outline of the stitching there of the blind hem stitch with the gray Aurifil, which was in my bobbin, so that just doesn't show through to the front. Now I need to go put this in the bathtub, if you can believe it, and soak it overnight so that the fiber paper that's underneath these shapes dissolves and becomes almost like a trapunto. It'll fill in, it'll pull in once it dries the edges of the applique fabric, it'll roll those edges over. And so what I have to do is go soak this in the bathtub for the night and then iron it flat in the morning, and we'll see if the quilting gods are with me. I won't have any fabric bleeds, and everything will look beautiful when it gets done. All right, we're in the bathtub. Here we go. It's going to sit for the night. Okay, that was silly, wasn't it? So here is the block, and I didn't let it soak as much as I really wanted to last night. I ran out of time, but you can see it dried out beautifully, so it's not wet. I basically, what you do is, again, you leave all that paper in. Don't worry about it. Just leave it in, sew around like you saw me do with the monofilament, then soak it. And soaking is part of the process and part of an important process because of course, you want to soak it and start to get all that glue out of there. The glue will start to, it's water soluble, so it'll start to dissipate, and the papers start to disintegrate. And as it's soaking, you go in there and you kind of scrunch it up like this in the water, which will cause the papers to disintegrate even more in these shapes. And again, it starts to create, if you know trapunto, where you actually stuff a shape with batting, this is a little bit like a trapunto effect. But you can see right there, that leaf, that brown leaf, is really starting to look beautiful. It's starting to turn over, and if I soak this again, maybe, and had kept it in there a little longer and then let it dry naturally versus forcing it to dry with the iron, these fabrics start to shrink. And what happens is, as they start to shrink, they naturally, the edges naturally start to turn under, which is where you get the hand applique by machine look. So you can see that as one of the blocks here. This is another block I'll show you quickly that you saw on one of the pictures. This one has been soaked for quite a while. Again, be careful. You might get some fabric bleed if you didn't pre-wash any of your fabrics before you stick it in the bathtub. And I should say that the water in the bathtub, just so you know, is not hot. It's just a warm or cool water, and it's more to get the glue to dissipate and the papers to start to disintegrate. So that is hand applique by machine. Also, while we were gone or looking at that video, I just did that. I just needle turned. It's kind of messy back there, but I did it quickly while we were watching the video. So you can see that you go around and you bring back to the back side of the paper that seam allowance. You want to make sure that you've got enough fabric. This is a little too thin for me, so if I were going to really do this, I'd come back and make sure that this fabric comes back even further on the paper, because when it thins out like that and like that, it's hard for your needle to grab that edge without piercing and then fraying the edge of the fabric. So that's something you want to avoid. So that is hand applique by machine. I hope you enjoyed that. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And I think, what are we doing, Carl? We're going to go back to the cactus cam, I guess,
Yeah,
as a segue, as I make my way across the room to answer any questions you guys might have. Of course, you know, maybe I should have stayed at the overhead. I don't know. I'm back here now.
Well,
so
look,
we'll see what the questions are.
Gonna golf.
What? Is that somebody golfing?
Trying to.
Yay!
All right, but we have to come back to you because
Yay!
you have to complete this. Okay.
So there you go, you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. And let me see if we have any questions going on that I can answer right here. Oh, Jennifer says, the little sticks, I always have sticky feet. Yes, those sticks are wonderful. Any of the facial, I hate to say it, if you go to your beauty supply store, look for facial waxing sticks. Those are the best sticks to use for this, because like I said, they have that flat, they're like popsicle sticks, but they're thinner and flatter than popsicle sticks, and they've got that nice slanted edge, which they use for waxing. So the waxing sticks make great tools here. And then of course you just throw them away after each shape. So
question from Julie.
Yes, Julie says, do you find that you don't need any stabilization to the back of the background fabric to avoid puckering? No, you don't. And that's because you're using basically a monofilament thread with the 50 weight, or you can even use like a 60 weight thread in your bobbin. Those are very thin threads for the bobbin. And then of course you're using the clear thread on top. And you've got the stabilization for your little blind hem stitch or your little zigzag stitch with the buildup of the wash away applique paper and the fabric being twice folded, if that makes sense. You've got the top fabric and then it's folded under the stabilization paper. So it gives it enough stabilization for the blind hem stitch. You may need to adjust your tension, you guys, so that you don't see the bobbin thread popping up to the top. That is something you might want to do, is do a test. Make sure you adjust your tension so that you don't see the bobbin popping up on the top. You want, if anything, the bobbin to be tighter in tension so that the monofilament thread pulls to the bottom, because that makes it all the better when it dries out too.
Trudy's got a question.
Trudy's question. What's that, Carl? Thank you for sharing the Easy Machine applique method. I can't believe how fast, I just lost that comment, Carl. How fast what?
How fast you sew and stay on the edge.
Yes, how fast you sew and stay. Yeah, well, once you get going with the blind hem stitch or the zigzag, and again, set that to the absolute tiniest stitch you possibly can do on your machine so that you're just biting the edge of the applique fabric. That's very important. It has to be super tiny, or else you won't see it turn under and give you that illusion of hand applique. But yes, once you get used to seeing it and you do this a little bit, get everything going, and you don't get hypnotized by the needle. That's one of the big things. You can go pretty fast. And so usually when I do this method, and other people do this method, you set up all your blocks first, and you set up all your shapes, then you set up all your blocks, meaning that you've pasted all your shapes onto your blocks, and then you just sit down at your machine in an afternoon and stitch all around those shapes. And you can overlap some of the stitching here and there, but just know that if you overlap too much with monofilament thread, it won't turn under, and it'll create like a little bit of a shiny appearance on the edge.
Susan's got a question.
Yes, Susan. In hand applique, some thread shows. Why not use a colored thread? You can if you want to, but the monofilament thread is so super fine. And of course, we're trying to give the illusion that we've done this by hand. And so some of the best hand appliqueurs I know of, and a lot of them are still in Pinehurst, I might say. So congratulations, you guys. You don't see those stitches. Those stitches are nowhere near seen on the top. And they do use, most of them use a very fine 80 weight silk thread. They usually use the same color as the edge of the applique, but the monofilament thread kind of mimics that silk 80 weight thread. And then of course you don't see it either. So as the papers dissipate in there, and as you soak the block, and the more you soak, or the more dried out the block gets, the more those edges turn under. And I might add too that one of the other things that really helps the edges to turn under on this technique is when you go to the machine quilter, or when you get to the machine quilting step, to actually stitch right around the edge of each applique. Stitch in the ditch, if you will, or in the gutter on the edge of the applique, which in the background fabric. So you stitch around, outlining the background fabric, outlining the edge of the background, the shape in the background fabric, which causes, again, the shape to pucker up and then turn under.
I think Cosmo does that in the back of the eye.
It does, but that's not applique.
No, it's not. But
so we're not going to talk about that, because that's not applique. That's pieced, Carl.
Petra's got a question.
Yes. You guys are great today. Do you soak in hot or cold water? I soak in like kind of lukewarm water. So not hot, because hot will make any fabrics that are prone to bleed, they will bleed really fast in hot water. And I might add, if you're a Kay Fawcett fan, his reds and his pinks sometimes bleed. So be aware of that if you haven't pre-washed your fabric, you may go to all this trouble and stick it in the water and have some bleeding going on. And I might add too, with this technique, you can use batiks for this technique, but they don't turn over as nice as the cotton or printed cottons do. Batiks are rather stiff, and sometimes they have problems turning over when you need them to. Anybody else?
Judy's got a question.
When you soak the block, do you have issues with glue clogging your tub drain? No. No, I don't.
Well, not yet.
Not yet. We have issues with food clogging the tub drain, because we're doing the dishes because the kitchen's not done yet. Which is anybody else? Marcia says, great demo. Thank you so much. I love this technique, and you always make things seem so doable. It is. And like I said, if you've never done this before, go ahead and just do simple shapes. Very simple, a leaf, or a circle. So you clip, all the curves of the circle and try that. Just start out simple and try it. And again, everybody's machine is totally different. So you have to experiment with your stitch width and length.
Trudy's got another question.
Trudy, do you say that the monopoly is heat resistant? Yes, I do. So anything, the superior thread's clear thread is a polyester clear thread, which will not melt under the iron. So be very wary of nylon clear thread, because more than likely that will melt away under your iron. And you do need, I might add, I don't know if I said that during the demo, you do need to, once you get the block out of the bathtub and it's soaked and you usually you want to soak overnight or over the day, so to speak. That block soaked for about an hour, which was probably not nearly enough to dissipate the paper in it. Once you bring it out of the bathtub, you kind of wring it dry, lay it flat on a towel, let it dry naturally on the towel flat, then put it on your ironing board, wrong side up. So the back side up first, and give it a pressing with a kind of a steam iron, and then bring it to the, turn it over to the front side, put a pressing cloth on it, and then give it another really good kind of steam and press out. And that also makes everything go over. And that's why you need the poly thread, because you don't want all that stitching you've done to melt away when you put it under the iron.
Sandra got a question about your
Yes.
machine.
Which Bernina do you have? I have a 750 QE, Sandra. So that is what you saw. But that stitch width and length should be pretty universal for whatever Bernina you have. And if you don't have a Bernina, then try to use that same stitch width and length. And just gauge accordingly to your machine. Again, you want it to be as tiny of a stitch as you possibly can see. So when I do this technique and I'm doing several blocks at once, I have a magnifying mirror that I can attach to my machine, and I actually bring it down even smaller than what you saw. So I might even bring it down a tad smaller, and then I use the magnifying mirror that goes to the machine so that my eyes don't get tired as I'm doing this, because the idea is to just bite the edge of the applique, the very tiniest edge, almost like 2 threads in. And that, again, is creating that illusion of hand applique when everything starts to dry out and turn under. Anybody else?
Terry had a question.
Would you put a color catcher in the water? You could, yes. A color catcher is the shhhh color catcher available in the washing machine liquid aisle of your supermarket. Shhhh color catcher. You use these a lot when you're pre-washing fabrics or washing your quilts when they're done. You could. I tend to take a chance on things. I don't pre-wash anything. Carl will tell you, he'll always say to me, well, did you pre-wash that? No. And I just throw it in there and, fingers crossed that everything works the way it's supposed to work. So, but yes, shhhh color catchers will work probably for that as well. Anybody else?
One more question from Suzanne.
Suzanne, the kitchen isn't finished? Question mark? No, it's not. So that's a great segue, Suzanne. Thank you so much. So next week we are going to be off because guess what is happening? It's the kitchen. So the countertop is coming in next week and the tile guy for the backsplash. So we are not going to be with you next week because, of course, we have very important things happening in the house here with the kitchen being finished. So we will be off next week. We'll be back for another fabulous Fab Friday on March 12th. And I'm going to actually show you, we're continuing on with applique here, I'm going to show you how to make bias stems and how you can use these little clover bias tape makers to make beautiful stems and curvy things out of your pieces of fabric. So that'll be the tutorial for March 12th. And then before we leave you, we want to leave you with the question of the week. So here it is hand applique by machine for you? Did you like that? Did you enjoy that? Will you try that? That's the question of the week, so that when we get back together in 2 weeks, we'll give away another $10 Colourwerx gift card for you. Please be sure to check out our workshops up on our workshop page on thecolourwerx.com or underneath the shop tab. And then also another announcement, we will be announcing the new quilt along starting when the dates are starting next week. So if you are a newsletter subscriber, well, we'll announce them when we're back, Carl, yes. But we'll also announce them in the newsletter.
Okay.
So we'll be putting out a newsletter there so that if you're not a subscriber of our newsletter, please subscribe. So you'll find out when the new quilt along is starting. And of course, anybody in the Colourwerx quilt along Facebook group will know right away when we're starting because I'll announce it there first. Okay, you guys have been great. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. Just make a note on Friday, March 12th. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please like and share this with all your quilty friends. Remember, go out and get wash away applique paper. That is my preferential choice. You can also use Ricky Tim's stable stuff for this technique. Get yourself some monopoly from Superior Threads. I'm not an ambassador or influencer on any of these products. I happen to like them a lot. You guys have been so great today. I see the comments coming in about will you try hand applique by machine? Thank you so much for tuning in today for our fabulous Fab Friday here from the Colourwerx Design House. We are wishing you happy Colouricious thoughts again, a happy weekend of happy quilting. Stay safe, stay sane in these really, strange times, I guess. And we will see you in 2 weeks with a new finished kitchen. Fingers crossed. We'll have pictures of it. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.